Thank you, everyone who's taken time to join in the middle of the day. I know there's a lot of other things you could be doing. And Kai, thank you so much for the invite and providing me the opportunity here to talk with everyone. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to share a few slides. They're just for you to really look at. We're just going to talk. Okay. I'm looking forward to having this conversation and sharing some of my thoughts and considerations around it. First disclaimer, I am not a medical professional at all. These are just a lot of my own thoughts from thinking through it for myself, researching for myself. I would consider myself an advocate for health, mental health, especially in the workplace. And so happy to take you through this. So we're going to go through this, the non-negotiable, why personal health is critical for researchers. The first one, when we talk about why this topic, there are three things in particular that led me to say, hey, we're going to talk about any and everything that's near and dear to you. It can be something that's a current event. It can be related directly to work. Health came up. And the first one really came from observation. This wasn't recent. This wasn't current, but it was recent enough that it sticks in my mind. I had a wonderful colleague. We worked in different roles. So I was in research. They were more in product and project management. But I remember she was suffering from shingles. And as we were talking,
Mhm.
it was diagnosed that it came from work-related stress. The thing that caught me by surprise is that she treated it as if it was normal. This was just part of the work, and she would work through it. And I just remember thinking, observing to myself, it's one thing to develop work-related shingles from stress, but it's a totally different thing to take the mindset that this is normal and I'm going to work through it. It just always stuck with me is that we find ourselves in places where we tend to validate things that are happening because we believe the job is bigger than things that we're working through ourselves. And so just really observing how others deal with stress and with health in the workplace is something that's really stuck with me. The second one is, as a leader of teams and leader of people, I invest a lot of my time and energy into developing others, investing in them as people and investing in their careers. And I find it's extremely hard to do that successfully if you're not creating a place where you're prioritizing whether you want to call it psychological safety or mental health, but really understanding people have a healthy environment as much as possible as you can in a workplace. And so it's key to me because it's key to my leadership style. And the last one I'll say is why this is an important topic for me is selfishness. And this actually came, we're going back 15 years ago. So now, and I have an uncle that I speak to a lot of things about from a work standpoint. And he was telling me when I was graduating from business school, he said, you need to be selfish with your health. Because one of the things you start to see as you continue to work in your career and you continue to progress, a lot of times you're going to take yourself out of the game before you get in because you didn't address your health concerns. Everyone's busy putting their work at the forefront or maybe putting other people at the forefront. And the next thing you know, when you're starting to have your breakthroughs or hit some really big moments, your health can really sideline you and derail you. And so to me, I've always had this mantra in the back of my head, be selfish with your health. But I can say I wasn't always living that. And so this is why I'd love to talk through this topic. Last one I'll share couldn't be a research forum unless I bought a piece of research, but this data point was very interesting to me. I came across recently. McKinsey did this work in this year, and they found that 64% of employees say they feel burnt out at least once a week. Like, really think about that. If you work with a small team and there's 10 of you, almost 7 of your coworkers, sometime during a week, are feeling burnt out. And there's likely a lot of overlap. And this is just once a week. There could be multiple times a week. If you're looking at an organization or a team with 100 people, 70, close to 70 of your coworkers and colleagues are feeling burnt out at least once a week. And there's 52 weeks in the year. So that's incredible thing to take in and really think about the scope and the gravity of it. And I like to think some of the things I'll share are a way to maybe address or at least consider them. Okay, so we'll get into it. To me, health is multidimensional. I believe there are 5 components to your health. Some people may call it whole health, holistic health, but to me, you have mental components, you have an emotional component, you have spiritual components, and then you have physical and community. So when I think about mental health, to me, it all starts with your mental health because your mental health is a place where you can recognize, you can access, you can process things, and you can start to actually act upon them, whether to correct it, address it, or delve deeper into it. And the mental aspect is always on, even when you think you're asleep, even when you think you're kind of in your Zen moment, the mental capacity part is always working in the background, right? We're processing millions of data points on a daily basis. And your mental dexterity, especially as a researcher, is something that can be your currency. And if your mental health is not in a good, stable place and you're not doing things to address it, it can be very hard to do your work at a satisfactory level, but it can be even harder to live your full life and your personal life. And everything else, I believe, is going to fall in and kind of nest underneath your mental health. Because as I said, it's the place where you're recognizing, you're understanding what's taking place, and you're forming your action plans to hopefully address and correct it. Then you have emotional health. Emotional health, in my standpoint, is core to our work as researchers and insights professionals. It's really where you start to understand others, right? We do a lot of work where we have our business partners or we have teams and we have critical decisions. And a lot of it is based on how well do we understand the situation, how well do we understand others and what's motivate them, and how well do we understand what to do next. And I think we've all come to realize that as much as we'd like to put things in a logical sense, by and large, us as people, consumers, customers, us as researchers, we don't always do things from a logical standpoint. And so when you have a strong emotional health standpoint, you're much better understanding people. You're much better at developing empathy for others. And that's a big part of our profession. How well can we understand, develop, and impart empathy onto others and make some really strong decisions from? And then lastly, you have the resiliency aspect of emotional health. I'm going to talk about this one a little bit deeper, but I think it really is about the understanding, the empathy, and developing resiliency are core to who we are as researchers. Spiritual health. Spiritual health is deeply personal. You know, everyone's going to have a different take on this. Some people believe your spiritual health and religion are going to be closely nested together. Some people like to have them separate. Really, it's something that has to work for you. But your spiritual health is where it really anchors you in a lot of your confusion that happens. You're going to have stressful situations. You're going to have competing point of views. You're going to have maybe some work situations where perhaps your morals are being questioned. If you have yourself clear and strong in your spiritual health, that's going to be your anchor in those situations. It's also a place where I think it illuminates what your path forward will be when you hit those confusing situations, when you come across those professional crossroads, those personal crossroads. It's also the place where you can come back and validate decisions you're making. Does it sit right with your spirit? Is it good with you spiritually? Then that's likely something that you can live with and you can stand behind. So spiritual health, I believe, once you have your mental and your emotional aspect of it, it's a great aspect of your health to focus on and develop and continue to strengthen. Physical health. Now, physical health, it's the glue. It's the one that we probably have heard about our entire lives. Go back to PE class. You talked about your physical health. It's where you can maintain where your body is. It maintains where your physicality is. It also helps prevent things from potentially happening or developing further. It can decelerate things that are happening as your health may be declining. It could be a natural decline in health. But it's also a place where you can vastly improve your health. I'd say for myself, I've really been focusing on my health a lot since the beginning of the year. And the physical one is where you're able to see the most improvements. And that can be a self-fulfilling thing because when you're seeing that visual part, it helps you continue investing in those other parts where you can't always see the markers of good mental health. You don't always see the good markers of emotional health, but that physical can be the thing that feeds you into continue to invest those other parts of the full health system. So physical health is really the glue that can bring and hold it all together. And then lastly, community health. And community health, I think, is so important because that's exactly what we're doing here on this call. This is a community of professionals, and we're finding a way through different conversations, through different topics, to provide support for each other, to provide challenge in a healthy standpoint, and to strengthen and grow each other. This, to me, you see a lot of examples of it in nature. In particular, I think of these two bamboo plants I bought from IKEA maybe 7 years ago. And when I bought them, they were, I don't know, maybe 2 inches tall each, and they're actually in the same pot. And then eventually I put them in separate pots. And when I moved to a place maybe 2 years ago, I had them in separate parts of my house. And I decided to move them to a bay window in the kitchen. And not only did they grow towards each other, but they tripled in size over the year, whereas before they maybe grew all of 3 inches. And so I think that's the same with us as people, as humans. We need to be near community, and we find that we strengthen and grow each other. And so I think community is extremely important when we talk about full or holistic or whole health. Okay. And so why these things matter for researchers? We're a support profession, which means we bear the weight of our partners, of our clients, of our own teams. We're often tasked with helping solve everyone's problems, right? When you're working for, I'll talk from my own experience working at enterprise level, I can easily have 8 to 10 different stakeholders, and they all have their own questions, their own concerns, their own agendas, their own fires, where they would like for us to help from a research standpoint. So we're taking on all the burdens that they have and then trying to come back and be a good partner. And that can be an often unseen place where a lot of stress is being built up. And if you're not focusing on your health, it can be an easy thing to quickly deteriorate. Think back to that McKinsey stat: 64% of workers are feeling burnt out at least once a week. And these type of things contribute to that. I think second thing for researchers is we spend an overwhelming amount of time dealing with resistance, right? How much of our time as careers is spent delivering maybe information or data or research or insights that people don't necessarily want to hear or agree with. It may be counter to what they're expecting. It may be counter to something they're looking to push through or maybe build. And we spend a lot of our time dealing with that. And if you, whether you think about it or not, that subconsciously, that's taking a beating on you from a mental standpoint, from an emotional standpoint. It will eventually lead to physical impacts happening from that. And so we
Khary,
spend a
excuse
lot
me.
of time doing that. Yep.
Khary, excuse me. If we can get to this has been great. If we can get to the question and we can go to breakout groups, that would be great.
Yep. Absolutely. It's coming right up.
Great.
And then the last one, to that point, we deal with a full spectrum of problems. We're interacting with society. And so whether we deal with people dealing with medical issues, mental issues, financial issues, all those things are places that we have the potential to touch. And we have to compartmentalize it into a professional standpoint, analyze it, and share back to make decisions. So those things all feed in. So the question I have for everyone here as a thought starter: we all work very hard to do the best we can on projects. And I'd love to hear from this group. What would you do differently if your health was the most important project of your career?